First time we're like early. Maybe that means something about Georgia. Tomorrow you have to tell us if it's the cultural norm for people to be early, on time, or late, like in Portugal.
Like in Georgian style, it's always kind of late because we're kind of it's a normal thing to be late on a meeting, but like for wine, even we need to be on time. So
Oh yeah,
especially
that
for
makes
the
sense.
orange wines, that's the best thing. So
Awesome.
this I don't know if you heard about the joke about Georgian, how Georgia got the place on the earth, like the exactly the small land, because we have a variety of different geographical climate, and we produce wines from like really continental climate even to from subtropical climate. So the wines vary, and they could be really high acidic and fresh with green fruits, and they could vary from like really tropical fruits and yellow fruits. So from east to west, we have a wide range of wines. So I think you should all try once you all visit Georgia as well, and I hope you will one day for sure.
That's the perfect intro. So that whole
We
time we
must,
were
we must
recording,
know.
that whole time we were recording, I normally kind of like just pop in, but that's a nice like. Now, welcome to Georgia. So, hi everyone. My name is Cha McCoy. I am the co-founder of United We Taste with my friend Philippe, and I am excited to bring you to the Republic of Georgia. And Marika just reminded me that originally I was like, oh, let's just do Eastern Europe so people can kind of like grab whatever country they want. And I'll get into the reason why I originally actually started with Eastern Europe. But right now it just seemed like everyone was talking about two things: Georgian wine and orange wine. And so since they both have a long history together, I thought it made sense for us to just go and start talking about, let me correct myself, amber wine and Georgian wine for the sake of this United We Taste edition. So I'll be your host. Philippe will be here. I'm going to swing it over to Philippe, tell you who he is and what's going on. And guess what? We didn't talk about when we're going to taste the wines, but we're going to taste them at the end. And we're going to go right into discussion because I feel like that's going to be the hot topics, is some of these things that need to be demystified about the wine styles. Where the hell is Georgia? And hopefully I'll be able to share my screen so I can actually pull up a map as we have our ambassador from Georgia actually talking too. So go ahead, Philippe, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Philip. I'm calling you from a small town called Agde in the wine region of Bairrada in Portugal. I work as a business consultant, and I also run a blog called Vinho Ishima. I'm very excited to be here today, and let's start this.
Awesome. Jade?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jade Marley. I'm a wine and spirits consultant, currently with Indie Wineries based in Brooklyn, New York. And we recently started bringing in the Romy Selects portfolio via LA, which is, we're dealing with her Georgian wines. Really excited about that.
Fresh. We get some fresh wine knowledge straight from Jade with this new release for her team. Thank you, Jade. Doreen?
Hi, I'm Doreen Winkler. I have an orange wine subscription service called Orange Blue, and I also consult in the city. I'm in New York.
Thanks, Doreen. And like I said, she got an orange sweatshirt on. I went to Syracuse, so whenever I see people with the big orange sweatshirt, I live for this. So I'm like, it's okay. Good thing we're talking about it in orange in October because Halloween and pumpkin. So this is like the 1 month we can get away wearing all orange.
It's my color, and in New York we have this uniform all black, and I'm kind of tired of it, and it makes me feel vibrant. But I also just came from a meeting because I'm trying to get some swag.
I love it.
I was inspiring my designer.
Nice. Marika?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I am a huge, huge Cha fan. Whatever Cha is involved with, I want to be involved. She fascinates me. She is so good at this, and it's an honor to do anything with her. So I want to state that. I don't really know what I do anymore.
This is when you know someone's been in the game too long. They don't even know. They're like, I do everything in anything.
It's very strange trying to describe. I'm sure some of you feel this way, trying to describe career right now because it's changing by the minute for me. I historically am a sommelier, and I was with the Ritz-Carlton for way too long. That's probably what most people know me from, 13 years to be exact. And I started a program there called Phenomenal Femme, and I really focused on female winery owners and winemakers around the world. And I did over 40 dinners, and all my wines by the glass were made by women. So I have this female bend, which is certainly not unique. But what it did for me is it bonded me with all sorts of amazing women. So I'm pretty happy with that project. I'm now carrying it on. I trademarked the Mom Som, and I'm trying to grow a brand with that and really focus on working with other mothers and talking actually specifically about how to help more with moms in the hospitality business, because it's such a difficult. I had 2 little boys when I was at the Ritz full time, and I don't really remember many of those days getting through 80-hour weeks and raising kids. And I think we could be doing more, especially as we see the restaurant industry is going to change because of COVID. So maybe we could implement some new thoughts about how to make it a little more family friendly. So yeah, basically I'm a consultant doing some virtual business right now, and thrilled to be talking Georgian wines with all of you.
She's the mom of all the Psalms. That's actually what she should trademark. Thank you, Marika, for being here. And then we have, I'm going to call you both my 2 locals. So we have Maya, who's in DC, and it was a pleasure to actually have her introduce me when I did the speech for Cherry Bomb 2019. She did my opening, and I met her through that exchange, and we had to get to know each other, and I was taken away about her experience traveling to Georgia. So I'm happy to have you here, Maya, and happy to be connected with you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I'm Maya. I'm living in DC currently. Normally a nomad, but this year, of course, I've been grounded. My wings have been clipped. So I've been really on the ground here helping restaurants. Before I was doing that as well, but doing content for restaurants. And that's what brought me to Georgia through the restaurant Compass Rose and also Maidan, which you might know. And we travel to Georgia together. They do a lot of Georgian cuisine and also bring in a lot of Georgian wines. They're an extremely unique wine portfolio that they have at the restaurant. And one of their top wines that they bring in is Bayas, which is a sister duo out in Western Georgia. And it's just, they're really incredible. They love to just like bring in really interesting wines. So I had the honor of traveling with them. I documented the entire trip through video and also photo. And yeah, so just have been traveling around ever since and really loving it. And I would say actually one of my most notable trips was to Ireland, and actually the last one before I was grounded, with William Sonoma and Bake from Scratch. And we did a baking tour of all of Ireland. So yeah, absolutely love doing that and hoping for more in the future once this is all over.
I appreciate your art and your contribution to hospitality. I think that many people don't understand the many roles that can be played in this industry. And so it's been a pleasure to be connected to you.
Thank you.
Tamari, our in-resident Georgian representing Tbilisi today. Let us know. Introduce yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tamari Araviashvili. A lot of people call me Tamuka, so do not be really confused with these 2 names. And what I do, I'm a co-founder of a Georgian wine and tourism school. This is a new project. It's just only 1 year old. We are located in Kakheti region. This is the main winemaking region of Georgia. And here we produce around 70% of wine of total production, and we are located in the east. So our mission actually is to bring wine knowledge in our region for the local people and local community. This is why we choose Kakheti region instead of the capital, because we think that the region, which is the main winemaking area, really needs high education. And this school is bringing training courses, master classes, and introduce different type of wines, not only Georgian wines, but international ones. So we are just very enthusiastic with that, and I hope that that really can change something into better. Another project like I am currently doing, I started it like several years ago because of my family traditions. We have a very small like boutique winery, let's say so. The brand is called Vinome, it's very new. And only me and my brother, we were involved in it, and we just continued doing like some experiments and enjoying with this process of winemaking and the natural alcoholic fermentation. So let's see what will happen. So that's me.
I love it already. And that's a great way to kick it off. I'm gonna try to share my screen so we can just get with where is Georgia, and then we can start talking from there. So here we are. Everyone sees it clearly? I don't know if you can, there we go. This is probably better so you can see the very infamous Kahiti. Am I saying it correctly,
Yeah.
Tamar? All right.
Yes, this is Kaheti from where I am currently. Here I am.
All right, perfect. So I'm gonna actually let you take it away and kind of describe the regions, but I do want to give people some knowledge that the Republic of Georgia to the north of the actual country is Russia. And just below it, we have Azerbaijan, we have Armenia, and Turkey. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so people can just understand where we are, and then that beautiful little crescent or half moon here we have on the side of the ocean or sea is the Black Sea. And then and maybe I'll talk from there so I can explain why I originally thought about doing Eastern European. Last year I did Harvest, or I came to do Harvest, and I was invited to come to Eastern Europe, which I did not imagine that would be a place on my list that I'll see Eastern Europe versus before I see Burgundy. So I thought it was interesting that I was invited to, of all places, come look at how, learn about the terroir of the Black Sea, and I end up in Ukraine. And so it was very interesting for me to do full flight tastings of wine from Georgia, to understand, wines from Azerbaijan. I had never had them before. And I think that's the important part about traveling to unique areas, is that I was being challenged as a traveler to understand a culture. And that's what I usually seek out. Everyone speaks about French wine and we talk about old world wine. But in this case, I was learning about ancient world wine for the first time, with nothing, without the Western gaze, because I was being flown in from Portugal straight to Ukraine. And I was able to have people from the area talk about their wines to me, not Americans talking to me about this area of the world. And I thought that was very unique. So I wanted people to actually have that same kind of context when it came to Eastern European wines. And that's why I have a few locals here, whether it's Marika by ancestry and heritage from Eastern Europe, and then now making sure people who've been to Georgia or live in there was able to talk to the area. So Tamuka, I'm gonna let you go ahead and talk about actual Georgia in the different wine regions here.
Okay, so one very important thing before starting the discussion, I have to show you these things. These are our tiny qvevris, the vessels we use for our traditional winemaking. We call it like qvevri. This is a small version of it, and this is exactly which is used to make our amber wines. And how we do it is very simple. We put these qvevris in the ground, and it is made 100% from clay, naturally from clay, and it has a unique ability to maintain the temperature during the summertime and during the winter time. So the wine stays on the same temperature all the time. And this is mainly why we keep wine for 6 months in the qvevri, actually. So another important aspect I want to say is a difference. Sometimes people ask about like wine aging and actually skin contact. And the special form of the qvevri is very important for that. We should pay attention to the conical shape of it, because this bottom part is used to collect all the sediments and the skins inside the qvevri. So the grape the juice actually, sorry, the wine becomes totally clean, and all the small sediments are collected here. And this is how we do a natural kind of the natural wine.
Yeah, and
Also,
Tamuka, trust me, I have tons of questions about the different ways that you are producing it around the country. But I know that Kaheti is the main, I guess that's the majority of the wines that probably reach the Western world, if I'm correct. Even the one that I have today is from this region. And so those of you who are following, that's right here in the green, where she's located right now. So it's, but I think it was Jade, it was Maya who was talking about where she visited to BB's wine is over here, if I'm not mistaken, right, Maya? You was over here, BB is here. So that's the Black Sea or wine that I was referring to in terroir, which when you have the one from the other side, this is not the same terroir at all. And then I think the diversity of the area in the other regions is something I was not aware of. So I knew about wines on the Black Sea, then I knew there was wines on the other side, but I didn't know anything about in the middle. And Tamuka or anyone else who was carrying wines from Georgia, if you can speak to any of the other areas or anything that may make the region that you have for your wine today special, while we got the map up, feel free to jump in.
Okay, let's we already talked about Kaheti, and I think we will talk it later as well, and the main winemaking region. We can move to Kartli. This is the central part of Georgia. Okay. And the Kartli area is quite small for the winemaking, and it just started its kind of new winemaking history, because Kartli grape varieties are actually a little bit lighter and more fruity. Here we have famous amber wine from Chinuri grape variety. I would also mention this is a typical, we can do it in a quarry as well, and it's quite aromatic and fresh and fruity. And also Tauqueri. Tauqueri is kind of the red grape variety, amazing for even rosés. Let's move for the Raja.
Let's just point out right here that Tbilisi is in the red. So anybody, the capital is right in this region that we just referred to. I did overhear someone mention about that you can walk through Tbilisi, and even in the rubble, you see grapes growing in the middle of the city. Is this true? Do you actually see them throughout the city itself?
No, you can't see the vineyards from the city itself, but they are quite close, maybe around 30 minutes drive from the capital. You can actually visit some wineries and just taste their wines. So also I would mention one more grape variety from Kartli. I think it's important to know. It's Gorulim Mtswane. Mtswane is a green in Georgian, and we have several types of Mtswane in Georgia. Actually, we have. Yeah, actually we have Kahetian one. We have even central part of this Mtswane, and it's quite aromatic and definitely really fresh and maintains its citric aromas. Let's move to the western part.
Can I add in about Tbilisi? In terms of the grapes, I do remember seeing a lot of vines everywhere. There's tons of vines. In terms of being produced for wine, you're totally right. It's not in Tbilisi, but I do remember seeing just draped, vines everywhere, and grapes just kind of growing. And I'm sure you can actually speak to Tamari that everyone grows grapes. So when you're driving, it's just everyone's growing grapes. So even if you don't have your own winery, you're still seeing the plant almost everywhere, at least in my experience where we were.
And I thought that was interesting. And someone compared the Republic of Georgia to a state in the US, just to give you an idea of size. They compared it to the state of West Virginia. So imagine, this is a very small country when we're talking about comparison to United States, that it's, similar to size of West Virginia. And it's at the 42nd parallel for those wine nerds that's out there who's following us and want to see, what latitude we're at. So, all right.
Something else that I really found interesting when we were first being introduced to some of these wines was Roni let us know that winemaking was nobody's first job. that there were, you know, we have a lot of women, and they were corporate women, and they had all these really successful positions, but their calling and their passion project and really them just connecting with their family lineage was continuing to produce this wine.
Yeah, actually the story at Baez too. So in Guria, this sister duo, they were very young when they started. So Baya was in her 20s and she went away to college, and she actually got a grant and it brought her back. She actually always wanted to live in this small town, Amaretti, where the winery is. And her family's been making wine, but it was traditionally her grandfather, her uncle, her father. And she came back to the winery and she didn't really imagine that she would be making wine, but she just wanted to find a way to stay in Amaretti. But it wasn't really a traditional thing that you do. Like you normally try to go back to Tbilisi, or you go into Eastern or into Europe in general, which her sister did, Bansa. And so Baya came back with a grant, and it was an entrepreneurial grant. And she said, you know, I'm going to try to make this wine. I'm going to try to bring this business into my hands. And so now they're this sister duo, women owned, you know, doing white wines and red wines traditionally, but they also do wines in the more modern way. So it's this really cool marriage between the stainless steel, you know, production, and then they're also using Quevries. So I thought that was really interesting and very cool.
I think that was a question I wanted to get into. And well, first let's go back to calling it the birthplace of wine, right? So everyone in here studied wine in some way. There's many, I don't call them rumors, but there's, you know, we have clues left from our ancestors about where wine was first, or, you know, who've done it. But they say 8,000 years ago is the number that every time you look up Georgian wine or anybody speak about Georgian wine, that, you know, Georgian winemaking dates back to. Do anyone challenge that in the room? Is anybody here to say, no, I believe, you know, I'm gonna put Marika in here because she's representing Hungary right now. So, you know, it's like, no, it's my ancestors. We started it, you know, like, is there anybody else that would challenge the idea that Georgia is the actual birthplace of winemaking as we know it, you know, today? And we'll see what anybody has to say. Is there a rebuttal?
Well, this is very controversial as always. When I was sharing the tasting that we are doing today on my LinkedIn page, someone came in with a post saying, well, isn't that Palestine? That is the origin of the winemaking? And I told him, well, I don't know. I don't have the answer for you. It's all the people that study this subject, it's not really, we don't have only one answer. It's very controversial, as I said. So we saw some findings, some historical findings in Lebanon also a few weeks ago. I recall seeing some news about that. So I really don't know.
I think that borders in of themselves are man-made. And I don't want to say like a modern invention, but when we're talking about people who are just now starting to explore and spread, and are very tribal, like, I don't think the idea that something is isolated and confined to this one small area within borders that we know now necessarily can extend back 8,000 years. Like, we're talking about these tribes that are concentrated obviously in this one very general area. Who's to say that these things weren't happening at the same time? Much like we have the same conversation with distillation, and it's the same thing with fermentation. Like, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I think that's really the base of this controversy, is trying to pinpoint something. That's not really how nature works. That's a want that we have, not that nature has.
And there's also an element of they were nomadic,
right?
So we're moving. So it's I think it just gives us one more thing to argue about.
Yeah, that's why I brought you here on this program. And you know, the idea here is also, you know, and this is why this is not a Zoom call open for like the world. The idea is that everyone who's in here has something from their own reading, their own research, to be able to add to, you know, a fruitful conversation. So whether you work the floor, whether you live there, whether you travel there, everyone, we've all collected information. And so whether it's people in Palestine is like, no, we are the, we are the originators. And I love the idea of having people understand that, gatherers and settlers, winemaking was one of those, or grape fermentation in some way was part of just to avoid either bad water, for health. So, they're making wine, not to one day for us to talk about it in 2020 and claim it as the birthplace, but literally making it because they didn't want to die from the water. So that could be many people in different countries, nowhere near each other. And so, but we don't have that documented maybe as well as Tamuka in her country, who pridefully say we are the birthplace, and so this is a challenge that we have. And, we are now, in our various fields within wine, we have to be the ones to make sure we kind of like, okay, I know you read that article, but let's be real. This is how it really happens out there. So
a question for Tamari about, when I read or whatever information that I get about Georgian wines, it's always about Kakheti, right? That region. From the standpoint of production, how much is coming from that region than the rest of the country? Because for like me searching the other day, I wasn't finding any other regions except Kakheti. Is that typical?
Yeah, we produce around 70%, around 70 or 80% of total production of the region, because it's totally full with vineyards. This is the main agricultural activity for Kakhetian people. So we all have the vineyards. Even if you do not produce like bottled wine, you definitely produce it for your own consumption. And to add the previous topic, actually, we think that this birthplace is important, but it's important to have a culture like this continued forever, like even during the times which was like wars or problems for the country. Actually, we kept the traditions, so we never stopped making wine. And this is more important than like archaeological excavations, because I do believe that yes, we found it in a Kartli near the Tbilisi. There is a special place and everyone would visit it. We have this 8,000 years of history, but the main is people who kept these traditions. And even without that, just tasting their wines, you will feel it. You will feel the spirit and the history. And once you visit us and you meet them, the winemakers and their passion, you know why this country is a cradle of wine.
I can vouch for that.
So just to follow up on that though, the Qvevri, is that only in Kakheti? So in the other parts of the country, are they making wine the same way?
Even in any other parts of the country, they maintain the Qvevri. When we talked about Imereti and West Georgia, I wanted to add one thing. There is a difference between winemaking techniques. For example, in Kakheti region, we do 100% skin contact, while in Imereti, in West part, they do 30% skin contact. Okay. So this makes the wine style totally different. And of course, like our Kakhetian wines are really structured and they have full body, and like tannins are more impressive than the Western part.
Okay. And is that law? Like, is that like kind of, is it documented? We have to do this 30%. Is it law?
It's not a law. It's just, but
just
it's like kind of this is a tradition. Right. Like we follow everything by the traditions. Georgians are like this, but you are free. You can do even less or more. Mm-hmm.
I think you brought up something that we're gonna shake Doreen up in her orange because now we're talking about skin contact versus non-skin contact areas of Georgia. So I think that two things that we need to debunk right now for anybody that's listening, right? So we have Qvevri. Qvevri does not mean immediately that it is orange or amber wine. And I think that Doreen, you probably see that often where people just think anything coming from Georgia must be orange wine, because it kind of like now people just think it goes hand in hand. Is that something that you see when you're talking about orange wine, or if you're actually searching for Georgian wines for wine lists or wine shops that you put together?
Not necessarily. People know a lot about Sabarabi, for example, which is the red grape that I love so much from this country. But yeah, overall, there seem to be a lot of questions. I still have a lot of my own. I have actually a wine today, and that was very interesting, is from a single varietal. And please help me out here, Tamuka. It's Chulikuri.
Solikori. Solikori.
There it is. And this is just, as you said, it's from Imeretti, and it's actually 3 different blends and different skin contacts. So one is really, really long, like 9 months. One is about 3 months, and something that's just a few weeks. So, and then they blended it at the end together. And I'm totally obsessed with this wine. There's this new, like, I'm a little geeky. There's a new importer that's in town. I also know Roni pretty well. I met her at La Dive a while ago in France, and I'm excited to taste those wines. But this is from Nomadic Distributor. This Nomadic Distributing, they're called. Like super interesting wine that I don't know if we're in the tasting part, but I'm just gonna have to tell you how.
You like, girl, you held me for too long. I'm ready to drink. No, but continue to go ahead and taste.
Like
I'm gonna let you go ahead.
You actually really taste it, and that's why I always go back. Like when you understand like how things are made, and you understand maybe also the grape better, then you really like can go back from, you know, you taste this and you can like think about And with this wine specifically, I just really felt like it has a waxiness, but it also has all these kind of layers. It's really round. It's not any kind of a rough wine. It even has like some really juicy notes to it from ripe fruit, but like it's super layered. It's fantastic. I'm super obsessed. I've been trying to put it into orange glue for months, but they haven't shipped any from Georgia, and they only had a few cases. And since I have a lot of members, thank the Lord, by now, almost a year in, I really want to give everybody the same. I don't want anybody to be upset.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that the cool part is that, I mean, we all see it. Everyone's excited to talk about orange wine. We have to do a lot. I'm, doing virtual tastings. I'm talking to people that's sitting in Ohio, so it's not like the New York market. I'm talking about the much larger. Maybe everybody in New York may know what it is, or in DC, right, with Georgian restaurants around. But when you're talking about middle America, I'm just scratching the surface of how much education we have to do as the gatekeepers in any way, because they're the beginners who are trying to understand wine. And so you say orange wine, there's still a big mind-blowing emoji that goes off every time you even say that. And so, Qvevri, or even talking now about Georgian wine specifically, I don't know if people understand that is not the equivalent of. And so I just wanted to point out, what Tamuka was mentioning was very key. You can get Georgian wines that's been in Qvevri and still have no skin contact. And so therefore that means it's not amber or orange wine. And so people need to understand that, and maybe I don't think I even probably tasted one. I think I've only had one that had skin contact. So there's a lot more to discover about Georgia, as well as the reds, what we'll get into, and then the different styles between the sides of the country. We talked a little about history, and I think Felipe and I can definitely relate when we talk about Portugal and learn about Portuguese, indigenous grapes and how come they're so unique to the world. Here we go, Baga. There go a Baga babe. Anybody who love Portuguese wine, they fall in love with Baga.
That's my middle name.
Baga is his middle name. We call him Baga Boy.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes, that's Baga Boy. That is from his region where he's from. So he's super proud of the grape, and so he's Baga Boy.
Good stuff.
But iron,
we got question for Doreen. Who are your clients, Doreen? And are you New York centric, or are you getting orders from all around the country?
I'm in 35 states now, and I'm hoping to be in 45 soon.
Ooh, girl. All right, Doreen, you on my vision board for 2020 with my new wine club that just came out. Then I need that energy.
Can I ask a question about Doreen's wine? I saw the grape is Solikori, and I'm starting to learn about all these indigenous varietals. The wine that I have is 35 plus grapes right now, all co-fermented. And, you know, for the longest time, as you know, you see Georgian wines around, I was seeing Rakatsatelli and Saperavi from Kahekti. And I'm wondering, of that like 70% that's coming out of Kahekti, how much is actually like Saperavi and Rakatsatelli? And how much of the Rakatsatelli and Saperavi that we see on the market is coming from regions outside of Kahekti?
Is that a question for me?
No. I'm wondering, because I saw that you had that Solakori, and it's one of those grapes that I've been seeing and I'm really loving, along with Ojaleshi. So I'm starting to just get into these more indigenous varietals, but pulling them apart from what I see regularly available on the market, which are these Rakatsatellis and Saperavi.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just wondering
my experience too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Saperavi is the main grape variety in Kakheti region, and it's almost like the leading grape variety. So if you are talking about the Saperavi, the red grapes and red wine is a Saperavi. And you may hear even like Kinsmeroli or Mukuzani. These are different types of wines. For example, Kinsmeroli is a semi-sweet wine and Mukuzani is a dry wine. These are the microzones, but both are producing like Saperavi, produced from the Saperavi grape variety. So Kakheti is focused on that grape variety mainly. And the same as Rkatsiteli. The main reason why you get too many Rkatsiteli is that it has a history. So it started in Soviet Union times, because the grape varieties and actually winemaking was not so popular during that time. And actually, Kakhetians did not pay attention to viticulture as they are doing right now. And Katsiteli is a very strong grape variety itself. So it can be disease resistant to diseases, and it can just be healthy and grow itself without any care. And that's why it maintains the main white grape variety. Nowadays, situation changes. We do plant new grape varieties. For example, today I'm presenting Kisi, which was kind of like very rare, almost impossible to find around 15 years ago. And now it becomes the main grape variety along with other indigenous Kakhetian grape varieties. So I hope soon in United States there would be a totally new wide range of wines from Kakheti as well, and also from the all parts of Georgia actually.
Okay, you bring up something I think is really, really important, and this is something that maybe I can contribute as a Hungarian, or having a father coming over from Hungary in 1956. The winemaking, I don't know if most of you have heard of Egri Bikavar, bull's blood. It's a Hungarian red grape. It's Kak Frankos is the grape. During the time, when they were behind the Iron Curtain, winemaking was very poor. So my question for you is because we didn't start hearing about Georgian wines really until it was no longer part of the Soviet Union, really. Was it the same experience? Was the winemaking not done to the same quality because of Russian rule?
Actually, yes. Yeah, of course, because it was no demand and no support from the government. Yeah. And there was some period when the winemaking was totally prohibited because of alcohol ban. And this made us huge problems. This is why when you visit Georgian families, their cellar, the wine cellar, is inside the houses, not outside. This was kind of the type of, it was hidden from the government, because we could not, like, we kept our winemaking traditions, but in a secret way. And also, like, for the Soviet Union times, the main attention was to sweet winemaking. So it was like sweet wine or semi-sweet wine. And this made also a problem.
No, that's fascinating. I know that Egri Bikavar has come back. It's now traditionally what it used to be. But during that time, it was basically watered down. And the stuff that was imported, like I remember being, I'm from Canada, and I know a Canadian Hungarian, right? I mean, what do you do with that? Hot-blooded pacifist. So the wine would be so watered down. It was so different. And now just seeing like these beautiful wines come back it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. Thanks for talking about that.
History is important. And I must say, Marika, I didn't tell you, even though I was living in Italy, I didn't move there for wine as many people know. But when I was ready to get more into wine, my first actual wine trip was to Hungary. And so
really?
while I was living in Italy, yes, of all places, I didn't say, let me fly to Spain or France. I said, let me go to Hungary.
You go to Tokaj?
Yes. And I was very in love with ferment, which is funny because I know you was excited to, and I mean, ferment, not dessert style. Like I wanted
the grape. The grape itself is beautiful and is a great dry wine.
We're talking about an area of the world that has a lot of history that still is not. And that's why I was brought in Philippe, because when people learn about Portugal, they understand when people are like, oh, wow, why not so many people don't know about these grapes or know about these regions? It's because of the politics. And I think that we cannot be in the wine industry without understanding, Doreen mentioned about the area, but then it's the history and the politics that actually kept us, whether it's when I say separated from that information, with the dictatorship in Portugal and all these indigenous grapes running wild throughout Portugal. And then now we're talking about Georgia, and we're talking about old Soviet. And so a lot of people love the idea of like, wow, we just discovered something. We didn't discover anything. It's just that we've been, separated from it because of the political climate of the area, which we must at least drop a pinpoint to say on this recording so that people can understand we're not discovering orange wine or amber wine. We're not discovering Georgia. It's more about the fact that the relationship has changed. And with the new president that came into place in 2004, in Georgia, he had a more Western idea. And so that allowed what you guys just mentioned very clearly is about the Russian glaze of how wine should be made or what its purpose was for, was able to be removed. And so therefore they had to, how do we actually get customers from other places, which, unfortunately the Russians thought that Georgia wouldn't do so well and they end up succeeding, everybody loves their wine from other countries. So, so I just want to make sure everyone understands we're not discovering wines of Georgia. We are the ones that's new to it. It's not new as far as winemaking practices or even being sold in different places. So, Jade, looked like you wanted to bring up something. And if it's cha-cha, let me know.
No.
Not yet. Maya's waiting in the conversation.
One of these labels that we got in from the Oda family, on the bottom here, on all of their labels, it says 20% of Georgia is occupied by Russia. They're also in the Kahekti region.
Yeah.
And they're just putting it out there like, yes,
Big
enjoy
statement.
but
is that like a fuck you? Seriously.
I think honestly, it goes along like the conversation is so much more. We love wine and we love grapes because it's a vehicle for us to talk about any and everything depending on what we want to put into this conversation. And as a winemaker, this is their stance. This is like, yeah, we're making wine. This is our message and this is part of our messaging.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bold.
Now,
right?
the other thing I want you to do, Jade, is I want you to list the 35 grapes that are in your wine.
Yeah, right. I can't even pronounce the top 3. I'm trying though.
Jade, that sounds like an Instagram live challenge. I'm gonna see you on. I want to hear you on IG Reels going one. I'm gonna hear all of them back to back.
Yes.
You want to take the challenge, Jade? Do you accept the challenge?
I'm still trying to get English down, child. Like,
Look, but you have Tamuka is here. You call her up, like, girl, go ahead. You want to help me?
Kissy, Mitzvani. I know we got the Ojaleshi in there. Obviously, Saparavi. And that's pretty much where I'm gonna.
Okay, all right. We're gonna let you slide today, but the challenge is real. Okay. Everyone's doing these IG challenge. We're challenging Jade to name all 35 in her one bottle, which is hopefully they're even documented. I think they just throw a number out there and don't even know what it is. But yeah, we hit on the Quevries. Tamuka showed us the clay pots. We talked about the different varietals. So it's noted that about 525 indigenous grapes is the number going around when you do the research. that comes from this small country that's the size of West Virginia. So let's put all that into relation, when we talk about this country. And, and then they say that the Quevries are probably about 6 to 8 feet height, so if you actually are about 2 grown men can stand in there, and still have room over their heads. And then they're all, underground, which makes them unique. And that also, for us Portuguese wine lovers who loves amphora wine, is very part of our conversation when we talk about this style, this clay pot making and aging, and then how the Phoenicians were, the ultimate explorers who actually bring this style into the more Mediterranean countries and Southern European places. So in this case, there's a lot of what we owe to Georgia when it comes to how wine is made, how wine is, being loved on these days. And I do, unless somebody else have another question, because we could talk on, and I want people to start drinking soon. Is anything else about Georgia we want to, go ahead, Maya, talk to me.
Yeah, so I would actually just love to say and I'm gonna jack the name, but the Solicori grape, that was the grape that we actually harvested at Baez. And I just was actually speaking with one of the people that was on the trip with us, who was the wine expert in residence with us. And he said that it is technically translated wifey from, so it's like from the wifey. So it's wifey's wine. And what it was is like the in-law wine, the grape that would be at your in-law or your wife's grape. So I thought that was really cool. And it's a beautiful grape.
Since I hope to be married soon, I guess I will be drinking that often.
Oh yeah.
We want to just channel in some inspiration,
And do
the wifey grape.
Do you know about the saperavi? What saperavi means? Maybe?
No.
Yes, the red horn, right?
No, this is Katsiteli.
I knew one of them. The red horn. I knew one of them was something. Okay.
Saperavi is like a painted because of its color, it's deep purple color. Right. We call it like sapere, means like color, and we call it painted color, because it's very deep. And once you drink it, we always laugh because your teeth and your lips get totally purple. So it's really, and its skin and the pulp actually, they both contain the color pigments. So this is quite unique, a grape variety from Tenturier grape family. So it has a really nice story why it was called so.
So I know only 2 people have red wine, so I think we're going to start with the red wine people for the tasting, okay?
I want to see if Tamuka knows this producer at Tigonide. Can you see that?
Chigogite?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, of course. I know him.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Finally found wine in New York City. All right, but this thing is stunning. It's 50% Cavatelli and 50% Mitzvani. Am I saying that right?
Mitzvani. Mm-hmm.
The nose on this is freaking me out. I'll be very honest. It's super floral, like lilac, but then you've got that whole apricot, honey, beeswax, orange peel. I want a cheese plate so badly right now. That's what this screams to me, because when you have the cheese plate that I used to always serve, I had a little bit of honeyed hazelnuts on the side. That's what this is reminding me of. It's just a beautiful wine. I feel like I charged all around New York City and it was worth it.
Nice.
In the rain. In the rain.
What's the vintage on it, Marika?
The vintage is, 2018. So this is a baby. Now that's a good question. What's the aging capability of this? Tamuka.
Okay, first of all, about the aromas of the wine, and then I will move to the aging as well. So for the aromas, you have 50% Cavatelli, 50% Tvane. The aromas you are getting and you are so impressed with is coming from Tvane grape variety. Right. This wine would have a structure definitely and the body, because this is why we use Cavatelli, because Cavatelli has a body, and I think this is why you like it. It has a perfect balance for the body and also the aromas. And also for the aging, for amber wines, actually, we think like 5 years and more could be aged in bottle. And for the reds, for example, it could be like from 10 to 15. I personally tasted 15-year-old Sapporo, and I think it was perfect. So in my opinion, that could go higher. However, one more important aspect, we talked about the government, we talked about some trouble issues. This is why we do not have like exact numbers of how long this particular grape variety should age or how long it can age, because actually we do not have this practice yet. So it's everything just started from like maybe 2001, like this new era started. So we need more time, I think, to give you the exact numbers about what these grape varieties are capable of. So let's see, wait,
Sure.
and I'm sure you will get surprised as I am also.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Super impressive. Is this a common blend, having the Cazzotelli and Mizpani together? Is that common?
It is common blend, but not 50-50, because we do 70 to 30. So this is like called Zinandali, when you have 70% Cazzotelli and 30% Mizpane. This is a dry European style white wine, exactly from the area I am living. It has a history from Alexander Chavchavadze. He was a noble family person, and he was the first person who actually started European white winemaking in his property, and he created actually these type of proportions. So that's kind of the one of the microzones and the traditional like Georgian style. But 50-50 is also very interesting, and Chigokiza is a great winery, and I'm happy that you have this wine actually.
Yeah, I there was one Georgian wine in the store. This was it.
It's a feat. I have no idea. Jade, you got to get these wines out there, baby girl. How we get these?
I saw so many accounts this week. So check out Vanderbilt Wine Merchants. Check out First Wine Merchants. We got some wines in Henry's. We got some wines hopefully coming into Leon and Son. A lot of like these smaller restaurants that have turned into shops also.
Right.
Otway, Hunky Dory. A lot of really cool stuff going on in Brooklyn. Something that I've been doing is taking advantage of the shipping. So a lot of stores are shipping right now with lower minimums. So if I'm talking to somebody in Manhattan, I am letting them know like, hey, Vanderbilt will ship to you, like it's okay. And I think something also worth note, like a lot of these wineries are producing 250 bottles. They're producing 500 bottles. So like the Sherry Lehman's, like you were mentioning, when you need continuity and when you need SKUs, Georgia's really hard to go to because these wines are not around all year. These wines aren't really around quarterly, you know, so you have to have a little bit of faith in your distributor. And I'll leave it there.
But you'd still think, even like, you know, from a supply standpoint, you would still think though, because it's such a conversation piece, that it would be important to have, especially a flagship store like Sherry Lehman. I really didn't understand that attitude at all. And Morel said the same thing to me, by the way.
I think that it's really getting lumped into I don't want to say lumped because it's rightfully so, but the natural wine community is really embracing the wines. So it's these like little niche natural wine shops that I think are doing a lot of the legwork for putting Georgian wine out there. But that being said, I think that also goes back to this idea like, y'all, you cannot be so stush when it comes to wine. You have to open your aperture if you want to keep up with the conversation, because I mean, wine drinkers, the community is growing and we all have our own wants and, you know, our own palates, and it's good business to honor that and not laugh at us. I mean,
you want to be boring, go be an accountant. You know, if you're in the wine business, you know, this is why we do what we do. But now that you brought up the word natural, go there for a second.
Yeah. I have wait, Marika, let me ask this question, which probably relates. Just because I think people think of Georgian wine and think that's also equivalent, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's just like about the Qvevri and always being orange. There's these random dynamics that people automatically, now that may be, like Jade pointed out, what may be mostly on our shelves in America.
Right.
But then I think I don't know how else to say it, but I did hear there are 2 or 3 main large producers of wine in Georgia. And if any of those wines make it here, I'm sure it's just like the large brands we all know that's here, that they're being made for quantity, not quality. And so, Tamuka, is that a thing? Is there such thing from your experience, and even Maya, during your visit, did you see wines that were not natural, that were still or organic, or any of the buzzwords, that the kids love when it comes to wine, that also was still Georgian?
So, of course, like we do have big wineries, like big industrial wineries, who produce not only like Kvevri wines, but also like European style wines in stainless steel tanks. But like for the small producers, actually, like mainly they do all natural wine. And actually, what is natural wine? This is like naturally fermented grapes and crush them and then start the fermentation with wild yeast, and once you do that, this is already natural, because you limit your artificial activities to it, and you let the grapes actually to express themselves as they are. So of course, the main aspect when we talk about orange wines, we try to limit the sulfite usage. But of course, like some producers think that they should not use any sulfite into wine, but there are some also who think that for stabilization, it's acceptable to add a limited but a small amount of sulfite, because we transfer the wines abroad, and we need to protect them also from, because we have a small quantity and you have to protect them from any transportation problems.
Sure. So you're saying that you do have some sulfur. There is some.
Yes, of course. Like there is also the sulfite usage, but for, let's say, natural winemakers, there is a law, so you have to mention that there is a sulfite into wine, or if doesn't mention it, then this means it's a totally like sulfite, without sulfite wine.
Okay. Mari, I think it's also worth mentioning that even the producers who are using sulfites, it's within this whole like low intervention threshold that we love to reference. Like nobody is spraying the crap out of their grapes as they're growing. It's like a bottling measure.
Yeah, but I think that's what Tamuka is bringing up too, is that there are large producers. So we can't think that Georgia do not make that large industrial version, even if you haven't seen it yet. Maybe today we don't see it, but maybe, in 2 years from now, and Georgia has its own area in most wine shops around the US, they're going to start sneaking in if they feel like, America is a place like just like anyone else. And I feel like we need to not, that's what happens 5 years from now when we're having the same discussion. That's going to be the problem, because then we got to now retrain everybody to not think that all Georgian wines are all in Kvevri or all not natural or low intervention. So we might as well do it now.
The term natural is a problem.
Yes, but there's 2 parts to it.
That idea of low intervention, but what does that mean?
But low intervention, we have the natural preservatives coming from, it being in the Kvevri itself, right? So we're not actually adding anything, because we have the skin contact already happening, all in the same place. So we all know what we mean. We're all in the same industry, in the same bubble, if you want to say, that have that knowledge. But I think the larger part is people equating that to things. Like all orange wines, I'm sure Doreen must get this a lot. All orange wines must be natural. We know that's not true. Right. So
not true.
But people, how much is like, I mean, people do equate those two things together. So, from your experience, the products that you get, how much are natural? And are people asking for that?
Well, this is like my company, so I'm only working with natural producers. Okay. That's my thing. I have been working with natural wine for the first 7 years. I was working before with classical wines for a very long time as well. But like that's kind of based on my value of my company, that all my orange wines are natural for sure.
Okay.
Very natural. I also,
But they're not all natural.
The
beyond
reason I say this is, let me tell you my Alice firing story. I'm at her kitchen table and she's pouring me like 6 different Georgian wines. Now, my God, one of them tasted like my grandmother's Hungarian cabbage soup that had been sitting out in the sun for 10 days and it was like 95 degrees. And I love Alice. She is one of the sweetest, most amazing people I've ever met. But I'm like, this sucks. This was so not, good.
Like, it's not about, natural is not about being weird or anything like that. I mean, at least
about how it's made.
It's not everything smells like your cabbage soup. I love cabbage soup.
No, this was for me, going through that process with her, and of course, a couple of the other ones were fine, but there was there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to me as to why was this so drinkable and this so not. Like for me, I mean, Tamuka, is this natural?
I think it contains sulfites as well.
It says it does.
Yeah.
So that would mean no?
I think this means, in my opinion, this wine is also a natural wine for me. And just because it was just added a limited amount of sulfite to protect the wine from some problems does not let you say that this is not natural wine.
Got it. But you see what I'm trying to talk about when somebody says, in my opinion. That's why so many consumers are confused. I think
they just need to understand consumers do not have the knowledge to have an opinion, right? The ones who don't, right? And so therefore, that's why they're confused. I think I'm very aware of what I describe as natural wine. I think Doreen and Tamuka just are very much how they would describe if they was writing an article or obviously sharing. And I think that consumers, this is actually, it gives us more validity on why you should come to all of us, why we should keep our jobs. It's because you are leaving it to us to allow you. Now you can say Chad disagrees with Alice or Alice disagrees with Isabel from raw wine. I don't know. I'm just coming up with this. So in this case, the raw wine definition of it as well is underneath, I believe, 70 parts per million. There's a number threshold on what she allows into her fare when she talks about raw wine. So you have different people and yes, opinions because there's no legal thing. But of course, even in Europe, that's even if we talk about organic wine. Organic means something different for the USDA versus European wine, France versus Portugal. When we talk about in Portugal, we call it bio. Bio does not mean biodynamic. It means organic in Portuguese, bio. And so a lot of people, is very hard to explain to people. People say, oh, so you mean bio? No, biodynamic is different than bio. It's the same 3 letters. I'm sorry, it's confusing, but you got to go, work with me. And so we have to know our audience, especially as me in 2 different countries saying the same word with the same 3 letters, so once you know who you're talking to, you know how to like switch the lingo and get them to understand the point. And the same thing right now for natural wine, as it relates to orange wine, as it relates to Georgia, we have to kind of peel back the layers, understand who we talking to, like who's the person in front of us? Is that audience someone you could tell don't even know the difference between Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon? So then oh, okay, I got, let's give them just
forget this topic.
Yeah, let's give them the bare minimum. Just let them know there's no oranges involved. I think we already kind of checked it. Once we get there, that's the first start. And then is it natural or organic? Now that's like layers later, right? And so now we talk about low intervention. How many parts per million is the allowable sulfites in it? We're talking about what's happening in the vineyard, forget about the winery, right? So there's a lot of discussion that go into it, but it also talks about where it's located would determine that. So the natural wine discussion can always be challenged. You have the ability to sit next to Alice and have those kind of dinners,
amazing.
Moments. Doreen will invite me one day to her house and have all these crazy orange wine moments where we'll have some that's natural and we'll probably compare it to some that's not natural.
Let's do it.
So that would be a fun tasting.
I'm invited Marika.
How you invite Marika? I didn't invite her. I just created it in my head. She's not invited. Okay.
What about us?
But
anytime, but I would also love to come back to Portugal. I had a wine project in the Douro Valley for a while. We did like one of the first pet nuts out there, and yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, and Jade, I would love to taste with you. Rosanna said there is a tasting in the office, but like I can't wait. Like I got the email a week ago. I need to taste these wines.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because we're at the 1 hour mark and we haven't gone through everybody's wine. So let's make that a priority to have the discussion about the wines we actually have in front of us. And I really do want to have some moments with red wine. So I see it's Philippe and Jade. So go ahead, Jade. Let's talk about your red wine.
Cool. Also, to your earlier point, Shah, I just want to say my first interaction with Georgian wine in like 2014, I was working at a little wine bar. It was all commercial, industrial Georgian wine. It was all super extracted, super inky, needed food, but also a lot of residual sugar going on. And my first impression with these Georgian wines, an industry session where I met Roni, it was so electrifying because it was totally on the opposite side of the spectrum from that. So I think that those Georgian wines that we're talking about, those larger production, they're here. I just think that they don't have as much success with the American market, and that these are the wines that our palates are really craving, really, really pure. Anyway,
so we give it to a Moscato drinker. We give the Moscato drinker the Russian or Georgian style wine. It's a wrap.
We ease people into things. There's layers. So this is Courts of Ibis. Tamari, do you know Tamuna? Everybody that I've met within the Georgian wine community has known Tamuna in Kahekti and her Courts of Ibis project. If not, we have to connect you.
Tamuna, but I need the surname because this name is like most.
It's like saying Tiffany.
All right, but when I butcher this pronunciation, please forgive me. Bidzinashvili.
I think personally I don't know her, but I think I know her project maybe.
Cool. So this is 35 grape varietals, all co-fermented. So we have red and we have white, sea skin contact, proper 6-month in Kvevri. I think the coolest part about this, y'all can see the color here. It says rosé wine on this label.
Does it really?
It says rosé wine right on the label.
Yes.
So I do have a
dark
question.
Rosés. Dark rosés.
I love a dark savory rosé. Like,
but this is extreme. This is extreme.
That must be the 20% that's in Russia.
I mean, it's cool. It's cool, and it's really this wine is layered. It smells like it's going to be a really round, soft, like approachable glue wine, so to speak, if we're going to be using this like kind of natural wine terminology. And then true to Georgian wine form, it enters that way. It's very soft, and on the finish, the tannins just start to build. And it takes a good 15 seconds for that finish to really come through, and it just becomes this layer of structure, and almost stemmy and very dark, which is awesome because in the beginning it's soft and it's red and it's like ripe and plush and biting into a really plush cherry with a burst of pomegranate mid palate, and then all of a sudden it's just twig. It's just that structure, and I think a lot of Georgian.
And I want to be in a tasting group with you.
Let's get it. Yeah. I mean, we're here.
This is it. This is the virtual tasting group. It's happening.
Regularly.
So yeah, I think a lot of, and I get that often, whether it's a rosé wine, whether it's a red wine, this kind of structural build that's almost akin, I have really strong roots in Italian wine, and it's almost akin to like a Nebbiolo, where you're looking at it and you're expecting this really light and airy experience, and it gets really stern on the finish. It's lovely. I've been loving this wine, especially as the weather is kind of waxing and waning between a little too chilly, got to take that sweater off. The wine is really able to level with everything that's going on outside. Great.
Nice. And we didn't talk much about pricing. So if you want to just give people a range of what that would be retail for US, just because people may not know what Georgian wines are running. So
I'm going to be nice to my retailers and give them a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm just going to say 40 to 45. Okay. And I think that's actually, I just As we see a lot of wines coming in, people think that if a wine region isn't that popular or if it's on the come up, that the wine should be cheap. That's not the case with Georgian wines.
Or Portugal.
You know, like when something is made, going back to these natural wine standards, when something is hand-picked, hand-harvested, you're pressing it in these qvevris that are handmade, that you're burying in the ground, that you're going into by hand. That's not cheap. That's all labor. So you're not going to get a $15 bottle on the wall and get all of this quality, all of this history, and all of this electricity in the glass. It just doesn't happen. So also fine-tuning our own expectations of what we're willing to pay for quality wine, whether it's from Georgia or whether it's, you know, from Barolo. I think that's the onus is on us.
I love it. Any other questions to Jade about her wine before we go to Philippe? All right, Philippe, take us with the next red. Maya, do you have a red? Actually,
no, I'm cheating. I have a skin contact, but it's
ooh, look at I seen the way your color look. It looks a little. I was like, wait, I don't know if that's red. If it's just
it's
okay.
A beautiful wine.
Okay, go ahead, Philippe.
Right. Well, first of all, I must say that it was very difficult to find Georgian wine in Portugal. Fortunately, I met a Georgian winemaker here in Portugal. He's doing some wines in the Douro region. I think you know him, Cha. Is G. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he
shout out to Gio. He was supposed to be here. He's busy working harvest in Douro. So shout out to Gio.
Always busy. So Gio sent me this nice red wine. It's Okros wines.
So good.
It's from the Kakheti region. So it's 11.8% alcohol with 6 months on the skins. You can see a beautiful dark red color here. On the nose, lovely fruit, raspberries, blueberries, also some leather. Very nice wine. Reminds me of some Portuguese wines, some garage wines that my parents used to do and grandparents. So you can find here, it's a very light body wine. Nice acidity, I would say medium. And what I like about these wines, the tannins are very elegant, very rounded. But what I really like about this wine is the spicy finish. So very interesting wine. This is the second time I'm tasting Georgian wines. The first time was about 10 years ago in Germany, in Provine. So I didn't recall the tastes, but very, very nice to have this wine. So I thank Gio to send me this wine, and it's really excited. So toast to you and to Georgian wines.
You.
Cheers.
Tell me the grape again, Philippe.
Sorry?
What was the grape?
Saperavi.
Oh, what's Saperavi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amolka, what do we say when we cheers in Georgia? There's a
special word, kaumarjos.
Kaumarjos.
Kaki marjot, guys. This means cheers to you all.
Cheers to you all. I like that. Kaumarjos. All right, go ahead, Maya. I'm gonna go ahead and take it.
I'm cheating a little bit. I actually have an orange wine an amber wine from Bloomer Creek Vineyards. It's up in the Finger Lakes.
Sure.
But the story is that ever since I started working with Georgia, which was actually with a restaurant called Supra here in DC, I fell in love with amber wines, and I have not drank anything but that since. And that was, I think, 2016 or 2017. So I'm just obsessed. And anytime I can get my hands on it, doesn't matter where it's from, I just want to try it and taste it and just like feel the different layers of it. And of course, I'm not a sommelier, so I don't have the refined way of tasting a wine. My sister actually is, so she'll come in and do everything that you guys are doing. But this wine, and it reminds me of the Baez wine, it's just I love funk, and it has like this super funky taste. It's very kind of like sweet on the nose, which I love. It's like very fruity and has like a lot of orchard fruit. But the minute that you get it into your mouth and you swallow it, it's like this surge of savory, almost like you're drinking like soup or something. It's crazy. So I really love it. I'm not a sweet wine lover anyways, so this just like kind of does the trick for me. And I think the grape is a Gewürztraminer. And so I just fell in love with their wine. And I feel like it's the closest I can get to Georgian wines. But when I am drinking Georgian wines, I love a Kisi. I think that's my favorite grape. It's just this like really, it feels almost like floral on the tongue. And I think that's like really unique. And yeah, I just love it. It's like a very exotic and beautiful, experience. It just feels very feminine, the Kisi wine. So yeah.
Shout out to Bloomers Creek, New York. I don't know how they slipped their way into this tasting. But, because, everybody else is representing New York if you're not in Georgia or Portugal. So it's okay. We'll let them slide. A little New York love will never hurt. So thanks, Maya. And I think the cool part is that your love for amber wine, and obviously now it already sounds like you're one of Doreen's new customers. She's going to try to get
Yeah. I'm like calling her up right after this. I need to be on the list.
And so it's cool to kind of see how that has now broadened your perspective of like what you've tasted. And I think that's the fun part of all this too. So thanks for sharing that with us.
It's fascinating to me, Maya, that it's all you drink.
Yeah, it's all, I love it. And I'm just, and the thing that's so cool about it, we were talking about it, is that the Georgian wines are so, like there's so many varieties and there's so many different types. So you can get a red and you can get a white. And that's what I've been starting to discover as I've been drinking these wines. I do sneak in the occasional pet nat. I do love pet nat. But I just love these like funky, and that was when I first tasted an orange wine, I was like, holy cow, this doesn't even taste like wine. And that just blew me off my seat and I needed to have more. And so I just was really fascinated with Georgian wines. And when I got to go there, it was like just this whole new world. And we were tasting, 16 wines a day. So it was just really incredible to taste all these different varieties and, see the care and the beauty and the love that goes into this wine. I think that's also what makes it so good, is that they're just so passionate about the wine. So yeah.
Maya, what did they have to feed you to keep your palate fresh through 16 Georgian?
We'll talk about the supras at the end. Don't worry. Trust me.
Topic.
Trust me. Once you hear about the food, we'll stop talking about the wine because it's like nonstop for sure.
Agreed.
Philippe said we got a question coming in from YouTube.
Yes, so we have Bruno with us. Bruno Almeida from New York.
Irmo, hey Bruno.
Bruno está conosco.
Sommelier.
He has a question for Temuka. So Temuka, how would you describe how the recent political situation, like the Russian embargoes, have impacted for the actually better import of Georgian wines globally?
Okay, so first of all, I really think that the Russian embargo was a very great thing what could happen to Georgian wine industry actually, because our quality improved like super nice wines and we just got amazing quality and we just kind of woke up, because before we were kind of depending on the Russian market and our whole production was just selling there and it was so easy to sell. We could not even pay attention to the quality, and all these big industrial wineries played the major role. But after Russian embargo, we were like, boom, there is another market, it's a better one and they can really appreciate our heritage because this wine is our heritage and actually we can improve our quality, and it was kind of a new beginning for us. So this changed everything. This is why maybe I am here even nowadays talking about this, because we all have these wines because thanks to the Russian embargo. So thanks to Russia for that. Okay, so I can say only this.
Totally agree. Yeah,
that's one way to turn lemons into lemonade, right? Like they only wanted this high sweet, reds, and now it's like a whole new world, literally. It's opened up for Georgia. So it's been great. Who else didn't go? Temuka, did you need to do your wine? Did anybody? Okay.
Yes. Here I have a Kisi, It's from Kartli, as I already mentioned, and this is from 2015. This is Mildiani. It's very close to my actually village, and this wine is 100% from one grape variety. And why I choose Kise, I advise everyone to taste it first of all, and just try it, because this wine is really fruity, and it has also a body, and it's so super nice. And when you taste it, like okay, let's talk about the smell, because here you have a lot of dried fruits, and mainly Kise has the dried apricots and the straw, and even a little bit bitter honey that goes to it. And we Karthetians love kind of the structured bodied wines, but because this is 2015, I think it has a perfect condition right now, and this wine actually will be imported in United States very soon. This is why I choose it because I was searching something that will be actually available for the market in future. So, and we Karthetians, and actually this region respects our grape varieties and actually Kise so much that I could not choose any other grape variety. So again, cheers to you all.
Doreen, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Vortsike Marani, it's called. Over here from Imereti, and that's the Julius Curry. I was kind of like pointing off it earlier. It has like its skin contact in 3 different phases, a few weeks, 3 months, and 9 months. And it's really delicious, from this very small importer called Nomadic.
And so do they actually tell you, like, is it on the label, like how long the skin contact is? Because mine doesn't say anything. I guess I can look it up and find out, but I didn't see a tech sheet available, but you just know that? Because you know the producer?
A lot of questions. And I'm also that weird girl that like DMs all the winemakers. If I don't get enough information from the importers or reps, actually, yeah, if you look at my Instagram, it's all like, oh, Czech winemakers. We're kind of like we're translating each other. It's yeah, I'm asking a lot of questions. I don't believe a lot of things, but yeah, that's what I
great. Well, that's why your business has been so successful. I'm fascinated by what you do. I think it's great.
Honestly, a lot of people thought it was a joke. I just wanted to go for it. I thought it was crazy when I thought about it, opening the first Orange Wine Club, so to say. And then I was like, but that's really what I want to do. So fuck it.
And, exactly. That way. To be celebrated. That is, I love hearing that.
Thank you so much.
I have a Mutzvani. Am I saying it correctly? 100%. So I think it was interesting to hear it blended and hear how everyone gave tasting notes of it earlier. Because I think this is the first time I've ever tried it. And so this being able to take, let me do this. Okay. Sorry to all I have nice natural light coming in. So if you can't see the words, don't worry. I'll put everybody's wine in the information for the YouTube if I didn't mention that earlier. So everyone's, you want to.
Did you say it's 100% Mitzvani?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so 2017, obviously from the label, Qvevri, aged 6 months or so. And it is from the Kakheti region as well. And I don't know if anybody besides the one from the Finger Lake had anything that's not from Kakheti, or is everybody's wine from there too?
Well, yeah, mine was from Kakheti too.
Oh, okay.
Doreen's from Goria?
Or Imereti.
Doreen's is from Goria.
Okay. Yeah, from Imereti.
Imereti.
So
Sean,
I have.
Is it super floral?
Oh yeah, I'm about to go right into it for you, girlfriend.
Okay.
It's funny because when you were describing yours, I kept saying, oh, me too, me too. But then I think mine wasn't as pronounced. And so I thought that it was a little interesting because Tamuka earlier said that this grape, she did mention green. And it's funny because it also reminded me of everyone's favorite green wine area, Vino Verde. And I could smell like a nice blend of the grapes that we would use in Portugal. So it has this interesting Orinto on the nose, and then you also had this Alvarinho notes. So I felt like I was having a green wine, like this kind of early harvested white grape, but yet the color made me think I was going to have this really bold, robust. So as floral as it was, and there is some orange notes on it, of course, of a citrus, meaning like more like tangerine skins. Then I got this nice ash. It's almost like if you just put out a grill, not freshly smoked. And so I thought that was a nice nose to kind of, it was very peculiar. Like it was not something that I pick up often. We normally pick up something that's smoky and that's very obvious, like barbecue, etc. But this one is as if someone, I don't know, just maybe recently lit a cigarette, you know, more than the idea of actually picking up something super smoky and like all the grill flavor notes that we love on deep reds, and usually not on whites. So, so with this being a green grape white wine, and then having this texture from the wine, I got nice acid. The tannins were more pronounced than the acid for me, and so that's where, you know, we have this problem of how do we describe grapes to people who never heard of the grape. You know, when you go, oh, it's like a Chardonnay, or it's like a this, and then sometimes there's grapes that there's nothing like. And so our consumers, again, lost, you know, because we don't know how to describe this new grape to them. But then you have to go kind of like out the box. So then I'm like, okay, it smells like if someone just gave me a hot toddy, you know, so that's the flavor. So I got like this spiked tea, you know, flavor on the palate. And I think that, especially with this weather, like we mentioned earlier, a hot toddy is definitely due in New York City, make us feel good right now. So, so that's the easiest way for me to describe the palate, was just like a wine version of a hot toddy, you know. So
it's great October wine. Go ahead, Jen.
I wonder how much of that green comes from the grape and how much like alpine green is coming from the Kahekti terroir. I've been like trying to wrap my brain around how the terrain really changes from like the Black Sea going up to that more mountainous kind of climate.
That's a good question. We have, when we talk about the area, at least where Maya visited, they love talking about the 3 mountain ranges that gives to the terroir of Georgia. This area, this winery is actually speaking about this silty soil, and the minerality on the flavor does give it this like loose leaf Darjeeling tea flavor that people love. And I think that that's why I went for the easiest, you know, don't give you a grape, but give you hot toddy as far as a comparison. And I don't know the answer to that without having anything to compare this Mutsvani to. And maybe Tamuka, from what I just described, I don't know if you're familiar with this label and this particular producer.
Okay, that should be Casrelli. Is that the producer?
Yes, Casarelli.
Okay, yeah. I saw the like kind of a logo there, so I just could guess that. So if I correctly understand the question, we talk about the different like climatic.
The terroir, and how much of that is the influence versus Jade is asking about the process or the grape itself. So.
Yeah, it has a huge influence. Like, for example, for the West, and you know, like more Emirati, and is you already mentioned like this soil, particular soil, gives the minerality to the Emirati and grape varieties, differ from like eastern parts. So you, for the West, you have subtropical climate that is mainly influenced not only in mountains, but actually the sea, Black Sea, which is quite close. So the mountains, like, and they are like, they have more like stony and also like limestone soil. And this kind of particular soil influences for the Emirati as well. Differ from the upper part, like there is a Raja region, and they have a very typical, very small amount of land for the vineyards, and they definitely plant their vineyards on the slopes, on the mountains near the river. So there you have the southern aspect, and this southern aspect is perfect for the vineyard. And there is another aspect, the northern one, which has so low quality that like the lucky people are from the southern part and their wines are super expensive. I'm talking about the Huanchkara, actually Alexandroli and Mujuratuli. This is like a naturally semi-sweet wine from the Raja area. And when we talk about like Acharya, which is so close to the Black Sea actually, and this is very mountainous place, but also high humidity. And when you taste their wines, actually there are so few to taste because of the, I don't know, right now they are trying their best to increase the production. So I hope you will have also possibility to taste them. So this humidity and like tropical climate actually influences the wine. So you have really high acidic grapes there, and mainly they are white. And when we come to Georgia, to Kakheti, actually, we have different microzones. For example, my wine, this Mildiani Kisi, is from Ahmeta. This is kind of the more mountainous place with a cold climate. So here wines maintain, even whites maintain acidity. But when you go for the reds, for example, Philip has a Saperavi from Sirnari area. And Sirnari is a flat land, and it's kind of in the middle. This is a valley totally, and this valley has a black sand. And this area is characterized with a high heat and sunny continental climate. So the wine maintains, like the Saperavi keeps really fruity, and also it can mature really well for a long time because we have a dry autumn, long autumns as well. And sometimes, let's say for Mtswane, we had Mtswane as well. For Mtswane, we have also a very typical Manavi area, for example, from Kakheti, the typical place with also black sand and also the kind of the stony soil, and again the aspects and the mountains that definitely give us totally different wines. So even small villages, they have amazing terroir, and all these wines, I think, has this big influence which comes from the soil and the terroir from our country. So
Tamuka, when you talk about mountainous, what kind of elevation? Where are you at elevation wise? How high?
I think like for the for Kakheti, if I'm not wrong, we would have like from approximately 450 to 600 meters above the sea level, and it could be higher as well. Mm-hmm. For example, for the Raja region, the mountainous areas, and for the west. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's great.
So I always have my infamous question. I know this is Philippe's favorite portion of the episode is when I give out money. And it's nice because I don't get to tell you guys in advance. So you gotta be quick on your toes with this, okay? Now, this is a country we're all learning more about. And so it's been a pleasure to be able to learn from Tamuka, to learn about being in the trenches with Maya, when she was there. And I think that everybody can appreciate this next question, okay? So I play Auntie Oprah, if you're not familiar, if you're new to this United We Taste, and I actually give out money to all my participants because I just love them so much. And yeah, this is the Philippe Show Me the Money. One day when we good enough and we have like people editing, and we're gonna have the Show Me the Money in the background when I do this part. But I really think that the question that Jade had mentioned that I made sure we waited to the end is related. So that's also why this is a setup. Okay. Food is a big component of wine, but definitely of the Georgian wine experience. Most of what I learn about Georgian wines is that it's always, or mainly, it's a lot of whites. And that's on purpose to get through all of the courses, which actually is interesting to understand. They drink a lot of white so they can like last enough to get to the red. So there's a lot of white wine situation, or amber wine. So there's there's a strategy why there's so much white wine. And the reason why amber wine, or we, especially when you work the floor and doing food pairings, love amber wine, is because orange wine do amazingly with food. So it makes sense. This very food focused culture makes amber wines very gastronomic white wines because of the food. So the question is, and we'll start talking about the supers, but please, you all have all of my money to go spend on a restaurant in your respective countries. So don't worry, Tamuka, you're going to open a restaurant in America, okay? So Philippe, you're going to open a restaurant. You know what? Philippe, you're going to open a restaurant in America too. You heard about the wines we had today. You have your wine in front of you. Maya, you know what the wines are about. So in this case, what kind of restaurant are you opening? You has to be only Georgian wines on the list, and you cannot open, obviously, a Georgian restaurant. So you have to tell me what is the food pairing for your wine. Tell me what kind of restaurant you're opening that's going to go with the style. Sky's the limit. I don't know if we're going to open up, a new Ritz, Eastern European, I don't know. But I'm just giving you all the money. You can pick any city you want in all of the US and tell me what style of food, is going to be the theme for your restaurant with your all Georgian wine list. This is interesting. I can't wait for this. Look at everybody. Everybody's like, oh Lord.
I've been thinking about this since I started exploring these Georgian wines we first brought in. So I could go. I want a restaurant where everything is cooked via tagine. So the same way that we have our wines and they're all going low and slow in the kvevari, I think that the food follow suit. It wouldn't just be Indian food though, and it wouldn't just be Indian spice. I would want to do
Moroccan
or Moroccan, right? Or any of these.
That's what I was thinking. Moroccan.
Any of it, but like the food just has to be cooked in a clay pot, open flame, come to your table same way. And I think it would be a really interesting clinic on the interaction of spice and flame.
Oh, Jade, you was prepared. They're gonna think I told you in advance.
Yeah.
Like
I know what goes on.
Oh, okay. So I like blessing my people. So that is definitely all right. I'm okay with that. What city am I opening this restaurant for you as your investor?
Well, if we're talking about ideal times, I would go to the food mecca of the U.S., which has to be New Orleans.
Okay, so we're gonna open clay pot restaurant, all Georgian wine list in New Orleans. All right, I'm just taking it. All right, who's next? Where I'm going? Where you spending my money?
I'll go. So I immediately, when I drink Georgian wines and just know of the country and the whole environment, it's just a very like cozy and like almost has like a feel like an alpine type feel. My favorite night when we were there was driving to the west, and it was the middle of the night, and all of a sudden we just started passing these little huts, and these women were like flagging us down with old bread. And it literally felt like it was out of like Hansel and Gretel. And I was like, where are we? And the air just smelled like cinnamon and dried fruits and fresh bread. And I was like, we need to stop. And we did. And we come out and this woman literally is watching this old TV from the 80s, like literally a television screen from like the 80s. And she comes out and she makes us this bread in a traditional tonne oven. And she's like slapping it up against the sides and brushing it with some egg. And we had this incredible hot bread. And I feel like if I were to open up a restaurant with Georgian wine, it would be something that kind of calls to pulls from like the Middle Ages a little bit and has like warm stews. And, there's like a bean dish there that's very popular. That's like a stewed bean, and it's with little pieces of like cornbread almost, and you dip it in. So I would do like a lot of stews, a lot of warming foods, a lot of that kind of open crusty bread that has, doughy inside, and has like different spices in it. Also things that you eat with your hands. So like, big hunks of cheese and like, fresh fruits and stuff on the table. I've always loved the idea of just like having something that you just like go at with your hands. And I feel like this wine really kind of like calls for that.
Are we staying in DC or where are we going?
DC, I feel like DC has a lot, like we've given a lot of love to DC. I feel like I would want to go somewhere really that like that could use it. And I think for like environment wise, I might go to the Adirondacks or something like that. I'm sure they have some really cool stuff going on there, but I would totally do it there, because then you're getting that entire experiential feel and like pull in that pine. You know, I'm such a visual person, obviously. And so I would bring in like a lot of pine wood to the you know, the facade of the restaurant, and lots of cozy blankets and, you know, wood fires in the corners, and just make it a whole experience.
Love it. Love it. Sold. All right. Who else is taking my money? Where we going?
I'm not going after that.
Where are we going?
Okay, I will continue for for me, like for the restaurant and for the experience, the first person who I really need is Tamada, the Toastmaster. Actually, I need him to be there for sure, who will teach the rules, all the customers about the how the supra is going and about the courses, and who would teach these toast traditions for him. And of course, like Georgian traditional stuff. But you know, I was thinking about the food matching, and I remembered my friend from Uruguay who took me to taste their food, and I figured out that there is a big kind of similarity because we also connect our food with meat, and actually we like barbecue stuff. This is just a perfect, and because we Haitians and we Georgians love to pair a lot of kind of we love to pair our amber wines and the reds with the really strong wine and structured wines. I think this would be a good match for it. Mm-hmm.
We opening Uruguay
Yeah.
restaurant in the States, or obviously we can go down there too. I just didn't want you can't stay in Georgia. That's the only rule. So as long as you
can.
Okay.
Of course.
Very cool. You have I don't know if you've been to the US, so I don't know if there's a particular city that you admire or that you've been to that you think would be good for this restaurant.
I don't have this particular city yet, so okay. I don't know. Once I will visit US, I will definitely tell you.
All right, good. Well, don't worry. You know what? New York can never take enough restaurants, right? So just come on and come to New York. Always safe here. Thanks for that. Whose restaurant is next?
Oh, I'll go. Okay. So okay. One of the great takeaways for me after this amazing conversation is thinking about the history, which I'm a big history buff, and being raised by a Hungarian father was really traumatic in some ways, because he was a 10-year-old boy, watching, Russian tanks, come into his country. And my takeaway listening to Tamuka, especially about what Georgia has been through. And for me, I'm from Toronto. That's where this restaurant would be, because as a little girl, I would be taken to all these Hungarian restaurants. And on Maya's point, rusticity, I think, is key here, because everything about celebrating and honoring that history. And so I actually would go with some Hungarian cuisine. For me, I'm thinking with particularly with the amber wine that I'm drinking right now, Hungarian gulyás, spice, paprika, everything to me that reminds me of my heritage. I find it super relatable with this Georgian experience that you have all given me today. So yeah, it would be in my hometown, Toronto, very modern city, totally a takeaway from the rustic aspect, but we're looking at real mom and pop, checkered tablecloths and super homey. And wow, I'm just really thankful for today. What a great tasting and conversation.
I'm glad you enjoyed your wine and found something to contribute as well, because and I think I'm glad the food is coming together. So some of us has had some time to keep thinking. Doreen is one of them. Doreen, where are we going with your amber wine?
So I feel that really good German restaurants don't exist, and I never go like really back to my heritage, but when I think of Georgian wine, it does remind me like on rustic dishes. to be paired with. And I mean, I can see like with the amber wines, a lot of like sausages being paired. We have a lot of stews that could go with the reds really well, and tons of meat dishes, so to say. So I feel like maybe something that's a little bit more fun, like smaller like portions, and not like all this like, I don't know, like the sausage platters that you see in American restaurants that are German. Like, you know, you get like 6 of them. So it's not like necessary, but I feel like German cuisine and Georgian wine could be really, really proper pairing.
Oh yeah, sauerkraut. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Did everybody go? Philippe, how you didn't go? Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I'm sending all my love to Little Portugal in Newark, and I'm opening a Portuguese.
Ironbound.
It better be specific. You can just say Portugal, Philippe. You can't cheat.
No, I'm saying Little Portugal in Newark.
In Newark.
In Newark.
Ironbound.
Oh, in Newark. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay.
So I'm opening a Portuguese restaurant, of course, and because of all the similarities that I've learned today and we've tasted, I would use some Portuguese traditional dishes like the roasted lamb with the herbs and the small potatoes on the clay pot. I think it would be perfect for these Georgian wines.
You went with the obvious, Philippe. I gave you a wide open door to, like, you know, not be Portuguese for 5 seconds, and you went Portuguese.
I can't do it. It's on my gene.
Baklava, baby. You've got cod that's been sitting for days. You've got wine that's been in the clay pot. Perfect.
That's another one. Yeah.
Philippe, you got a friend finally. You know, finally someone's here to back you up instead of me beating you up every time. So that's good.
Yeah.
I love your country, Philippe.
Thank you.
I love your country.
We're almost welcome here. So
almost until COVID's over.
we'll see you in 2021.
Those were all great. I didn't think about any of the ones that, I mean, I've obviously thought about the Portuguese one. And I would say the reason why I was inspired by this question was 2 parts: learning about the food heritage, which, you know, Maya, and we could talk for days. I'm sure we must describe a supra before we end this call, just so that people can know what it is. And so Jade can also be jealous. But I had the pure pleasure of being the sommelier of a Bosnian restaurant in Portugal. So I have an advantage of actually working with, you know, Portuguese wines for Bosnian food that also was very like this culture mix of how do you have a Bosnian chef and who left during the time of the war and escaped to Portugal, and learning his story as we did this 17-course meal for our guests. And so it's interesting because we had wines, obviously mainly Portuguese on our wine list, but the food was not mainly Portuguese because of his heritage. I guess you would say our acting chef was also from Mexico, and the other one was from Portugal. So we had this nice culture clash. And so that was the inspiration behind me asking this question. So I must at least start by giving him a little love right now. And to say that the restaurant also inspired me to understand how well amphora/Qvevri wines go well with Asian food. And so my thought was to open a Asian fusion place that would have all Georgian wines on the list. So we have a lot of grapes we talked about today that actually are very light. They're inky and dark, but yet they actually are very light. So they can do well with something like the tempura, going awesome with the wine that I have, with the floral notes and the green notes and the minerality. So I immediately just went to my experience where we had this even a little touch of Asian cuisine on our tasting menu at the restaurant in Portugal. So thanks to him, I had this kind of, weird way of learning about the Silk Road and, Eastern Europe and how things make it, or spices made it to places. And I'm also aware that therefore the wine must also been on that trip as well. So
I know nothing about Bosnian food. Did he cook anything?
Yes, but just understanding that for the Bosnian food, it was definitely more about the appeal of bringing you almost like, the full head of the animal. Like it was like, we want you to feel that rustic feel that you're in Bosnia, more than his experience as a traveling chef, right? So then he, like most chefs these days, especially if you open in a fine dining restaurant, you may have done a stint in Japan and then now live in Portugal. And so is this tasting menu is very like 3-layered in one dish that could have took you to 3 different parts of the world. So where definitely was not a traditional Bosnian restaurant. So I'm like, I must say that. But I was obviously forced to learn the history so I can be able to talk about the food.
Cool.
And so that was just another level of Eastern Europe, touch point for me, being at that restaurant right before.
Shaw goes to Portugal to work at a Bosnian restaurant.
Okay, guess why? Because that's the only place where everybody speaks to me in English. So it makes sense, right? So no, but it was cool. It was cool. But thank you, everyone. I don't know if there's any love or anything from YouTube, Philippe, that we should mention right now. And Maya, and go ahead. Start talking about these supras while we.
Yes. Oh man, we can't not talk about supras, but I'll just preface it by saying it's the most magical experience of dining that you'll ever experience in your life. It's something that every family does. And there's, as Tamuka, you were talking about the tamada. So the tamada is the person that is appointed to lead the meal. And you're kind of just brought in. So we went to numerous supras while we were there. We actually also ran one with the chef, the former chef of Meydan. And basically it's just this festive occasion. There is food on top of food on top of food. And the one rule is that you can never have an empty wine glass. So and it goes all night. So we were there sometimes until 1 a.m, 2 a.m, and you're like falling off your chair and wine is still being poured into your glass. Even when you're leaving, there's still wine in your glass.
Maya, what's it called? What's it called?
A supra. A supra. And so it's just this grand meal, and food is constantly just coming to the table, and it just feels like you're in like a magic book where like nothing ever disappears, and everything's delicious. And the thing about Georgian food is that everywhere you go, it's very traditional and very straightforward, but it's some of the best food I've had in my life. And so, you have the hachaporis, you have, there's so many things I can't even remember the names of, but like lots of, breads and lots of cheeses and, nuts, like there's walnuts and, fruits. And it's just this really beautiful scape. And there's actually this beautiful photo I'll send you guys via email of the super table that we walked in on.
Definitely send it to me. I'm posting it right after we get off of this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I actually sold it. I was selling prints at the beginning of the pandemic. And one of my friends who's a food stylist was like, I need this to just have constant inspiration, because these tables are built out as an artscape. Like they're just gorgeous. Wow. And you sit down and you're like immediately inspired before you even eat anything. And there's also singing. So the thing with the tamada is that he's leading, it's basically prayers throughout the entire night, but it's in speech form. So you're basically getting this speech that gets passed around from person to person to person about a certain topic. So you'll speak on the country, and I'm sure Tamuka can tell us more specifically about the topics that are spoken of, but it's a traditional kind of trajectory throughout the night. And then you can make your own speech. So we made our own speeches while we were there. It was just a very special experience. And I would highly recommend that everyone experiences that before you die. It should be at the top of your bucket list.
Whoa, that's very important. And Maya, I made sure
a big part too
is thing. Like, is it something that happens like once a week and it's a gathering? Like, it sounds a little bit like an Argentine asado shop.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, from what I picked up from when I was there, it's like it's very it's formal, but it's informal. Like it's something that just kind of like happens, and you're invited in, and so it's kind of like this open door policy in a way where it's like, come on into our table, have food with us, dine with us, learn about our culture, and I think like that's just like it's a community element too that's like really beautiful there, that everyone just wants you at their table, and not just because you're a foreigner, but just like generally it's like this kind of communal element that happens. And the big part that I forgot to mention is that there's also music. So there's singing, and there's traditional songs that are sung, and it's just so special.
it's important to hear a foreigner, I'm sure Tamuka, speak about your culture, who actually, went all the way to the, not the most populated areas. Oh, we lost her. But I think that people need to like understand, like, that is the cool part of having, like, to being a traveler and to be an explorer, and to learn about true cultures of people and be able to share with people who have not experienced it yet. And so, Maya, thank you for sharing that. And that's why I didn't ask Tamuka, because when you're from there, it's very much like, yeah, this is what we do every day. She probably can describe it well, but obviously when you are experiencing it as a foreigner, it's like, whoa, this is the thing you should do before you die. Like, this is a very important statement when someone says something like that. So thanks for sharing that, Maya. And yes, I can't wait to get that photo from you. But yeah, I don't know if she's gonna make it back in time. I don't know if there's any last words from anybody besides us cheers in and doing our photo.
Can we do this next week?
Can we do it next week?
Same group.
In real life, right? It's interesting because let's do a shout out for some of the restaurants that actually do provide this style. So Compass Rose is who Maya went with in DC. I had the ability to come to DC to work on a tasting experience with them, and that was fun. That was about a year or two ago, and so I love that restaurant. And then there is a restaurant called Supra as well, correct, Maya?
Yes.
Okay. And so Supra is another restaurant. I have no idea about the ones in New York, but this is in DC.
There's a spot called Shama Mama that I just got put onto, woman owned, and they are doing the thing. And they have an outside garden in the back, and they'll be rocking until there's snow on the ground. So.
Oh, Doreen, bring the wines, girlfriend.
Well? Are you in DC as well? Are you in DC?
Maya is.
Where are you located, Johnny? Are you
New York? I'm in Brooklyn.
You're in Brooklyn. Okay, great.
Good. Okay, there we go. Tamuka, so we was wrapping up about the Supra. I know you heard Maya make it sound like it's the one thing you have to do before you die, of course. So how do you feel hearing someone talk so,
You should definitely do that. You should, because one very important thing you should know about Georgian culture is that we think guests come from the God. So anytime anyone coming and visiting us to our home, we try to make it so special, and we do our best to please them, because we think obliged to make the best impression, and each family tries its best to show their country. So we think like, oh, I'm my country's ambassador, so I should show them what I've got, what culture I have. And actually this Supra is so important for us, because it actually gives you the whole range of our traditions and culture, and you see the people, what type of people we are. Because when you are at the Supra and attendee, you just have a conversations like Maya said, and we talk a lot about our traditions, our like women and men respect, the relationships, that could be even a religion type, but it's a discussion. It's something that you are like discussing this stuff, saying each other opinion, but it's never goes in argument, because you have Tamada, the person who controls that each of them and everyone respects each other. So that's a great way to attend and just experience this type of Supra. The only thing is that you have to stay on the table till everyone gets super drunk. So we love to celebrate.
Okay.
Amuriga, I think this is where Lafette stemmed from. I think somebody, in the Western world went over, colonized the Supra, and then they said, we're gonna make it the Lafette, and then decided to glam it up. But it definitely sounds like, something we all should experience. And I can't wait to do it in our respective cities and meeting you all in person one day. And then hopefully on a trip to Georgia so we can see Tamuka in person. So thank you all for joining. Let's go ahead and take our photo. Everybody on YouTube, I don't know if there's any last minute comments or what you guys, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. But thank you. Let me top up.
This is the second time this week I've heard somebody.
Wonderful to meet you all. Like an honor. Thank you.
Likewise.
Girlfriend, that's why I love you.
Oh,
Introducing me to all the most beautiful people. Thank you.
And I'm waiting all of you in Georgia, and we can experience that Supra together for sure. So.
Bird. And to make sure Doreen brings her orange sweatshirt.
I
So we
don't know
could put
what you're
her.
hitting on this orange sweatshirt.
I'm gonna put you right in. I'm gonna put you right into Quevry, and so we
I
can't
just
find
want
you.
the matching legging to this, okay?
Did
So
you
match
know?
your
Put it on in front of my
Okay,
boyfriend.
Doreen, you're gonna love this. I just bought an orange sweatshirt that says Momster. Not lying. Because
That's gonna be a Halloween costume.
doing a
You're not a
Halloween
monster, you're a
tasting.
monster.
I'm doing a Halloween tasting for Charleston Food and Wine Festival, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna wear? I find this orange sweatshirt that says Momster, and I'm like, okay, it's a pairing with Halloween candy. So
For sure. Philippe, you got us? We took the picture?
Yes, yeah.
You good?
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Garmajos.
Oh, Marjos.
Karmajos.
Damajos. I think I said it right. Thank you everyone for joining for, I can't believe this has been our 17th edition of United We Taste. And we've been going strong since the beginning of COVID, since March. So thank you all who are new for joining. And I'm excited because next month is Rioja confirmed. So we're going super regional. Where instead of doing the countries, we did Oregon last month, and now next month we're doing Rioja specifically. So thank you all who are here and going to join us. Doreen got the wine club popping with all the amber wines, orange wines. The flight crew, my wine club, is ready for orders. Portuguese this month, Eastern European wines next month. So if you want to get some more Georgian love, that's where you'll find us. And so please follow everyone. All the information is on my Instagram, and I will put here on the YouTube description, as well as the wines that we tasted. So thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, Cha.
Cheers.
Thanks for being the
Thank
badass
you.
that you are.
Bye.